of all the money ever spent, it would be number 1, doula, number 2, hypnobirthing, number 3, the breastfeeding class I didn't take. For preparation, I'm kind of like a nutty person, so I had done a lot of like the preconception phase, a lot of like the prepping my body. I did a lot of tests with my naturopath just to make sure like my hormone levels were good, like all the stuff. So for classes, which I can't stress enough, we did the hypnobirthing class, and I knew right away that's what I wanted to do, which I guess to back up just a little bit from that, I'm a big podcast person. I do sales for work. I'm in the car a lot, so I have time to listen, not necessarily read. So I listened to a lot of podcasts, and everybody talked about hypnobirthing. So I started looking into it, found Kara's class, and you right away, I actually heard your voice on something. I don't even know what it was, but your voice resonated with me first and foremost. So then I was like, I know I want to take this class, and I want it to be her. I don't want anybody else. So cannot recommend hypnobirthing enough. We also did the Newborn 101 class. And then my biggest regret is not taking the breastfeeding class. So if you're even on the fence with it, do it. It will save you so many days and nights and tears. Cannot recommend it enough. And doing a hospital tour, which I know isn't really a class, but I think it's really vital. It gave us, especially then for hypnobirthing, the visual of where we were going to give birth and what it was going to look like, and it just helped us be even more empowered, not only through asking questions during the tour, but then again of visualizing us being there. And then once we went, we actually were in the room we toured, which was kind of crazy. So our provider, so basically it's probably what a lot of you guys have done, we picked our OB based on the insurance we had and more of kind of the hospital we knew we wanted to deliver at. But we wanted to have an OB that was in a really small group, because if we were going to have kind of one of these different people, sort of we're playing Russian roulette, we'd rather it be a smaller number of options than like a huge bank of people. And we still ended up having someone we'd never met, but she was literally the best surprise that ever happened to us. And then a doula, cannot stress that enough. Our doula is Willow Buckley. Balancing Your Health with Willow, I think, is her Instagram, but Willow Buckley, amazing. I think like if of all the money ever spent, it would be number 1, doula, number 2, hypnobirthing, number 3, the breastfeeding class I didn't take. So yes, get a doula. And I think too, like, I know, yes, I had the pleasure of having her in the room with us, but her knowledge and expertise can be conveyed so easily through a phone in the room. So it's not that, you're not getting your money's worth, so to speak, if your doula wasn't to be in your laboring room with you. She saved hours off of my labor. She helped, my husband feel more comfortable at times when he was like, what do I do? So maybe she's not standing in the hospital room rubbing your feet for you, but she's helping tell your medical team different things that they can try to do that will literally, like I said, save hours off of your labor. So definitely recommend a doula. Books. So I read Magical Beginnings, Enchanted Lives by Deepak Chopra, great book. Labor Like a Goddess, another great book. And then again, podcasts, highly recommend. One of the ones I listened to was basically people's birth stories. I think it was called The Birth Hour. And to be honest, at first I was like, I don't think I'd like this, but afterwards I did, because you hear so many different stories about situations you never thought you might even be in, which I just think makes you more prepared when you do go in if things go different than what you planned. So definitely recommend that. So basically, we had what Kara would call your Hollywood birth, where my water actually broke. So baby came a week before her guest date, which I was convinced she was going to come late. So to me, she came 2 weeks early. So my water actually broke in the middle of the night. So true Hollywood birth. It was like 3:15 in the morning. My husband had just taken our dog out to go to the bathroom, came in, got in bed. And as you know, in your 3rd trimester, you leak fluid from time to time. So I felt a little leak and I was like, not worth getting up. I'm just going to roll over and keep sleeping. And I felt like a bigger leak. And I'm like, dang it, I probably have to get up and like change my pants. So I get up and you hear liquid hit the floor. And I'm like, no. And my husband's like, is that your water breaking? I'm like, I don't know. And I so badly didn't want it to be that I'm like, no, I'm fine. It's no big deal. So I like hop into the other room. You hear more liquid hitting the floor because we have hardwood floors. And he's like, get in the bathroom already. So I go in, I look, TMI, my mucus plug is in my shorts. So I call my doula, right? First thing you do, call my doula. And she's like, send me photos. I'm sending her photos. And she's like, yes, it looks like your mucus plug broke. She's like, how much liquid would you say came out? And I'm like, I don't know, not that much. And I'm downplaying everything because I don't want my water to have broke. I had so many things still to do. And so she's like, yeah, I guess your water could break and maybe you're not in labor yet, maybe. And I'm like, okay, good. That's totally what's happening. Not labor. It's not happening to me. And she's like, just take a shower, relax, get cleaned up, get back in bed, go back to sleep. She's like, if you don't feel, if you don't feel cramps, you're not in labor, you're okay. And I'm like, perfect, I don't feel cramps. Got off the phone, took a hot shower. Mental note, I should have shaved my legs at this point, but I didn't. I got out, got comfy, went to crawl in bed, and I started having stomach cramps. So I'm like, oh no, it's happening. And so my husband gets out the app that Care had us download on our phone to time the surges. And literally we were having surges a minute long every 5 minutes. And then it quickly went from a minute long to every 2 minutes. And there was no going back to sleep. So for some of us, don't drink that glass of wine and lay down. It's not gonna happen. But it was just surges from the get-go and boom, like clockwork. So he was constantly in touch with our doula. And I want to say at like 8 a.m. So, things started at 3:15. It was like 8 a.m. We went to the hospital. Luckily, we delivered at Scripps La Jolla. There's no triage. So they take you right into your room. And like I said, we delivered in the room that we had toured. So it was perfect. We knew where everything was. We knew what was going on. I had my whole birth wish list that I'd never even typed and printed because she was 2 weeks early, right? But Willow knew everything, and I had it on my phone, so it didn't even matter. And Willow's our doula. So we get into our room, everything's good. I made sure I did not want to know progress because I had kind of learned this from the podcast I listened to, but for a lot of women, it could be a kind of a mental block if they said, oh, you're only at this. So I didn't want to know. I said, you can tell my husband, you can tell my doula, but I don't want to know. And so it just helped me stay in a really positive mind space. And I did not want medication. They knew this. So they just did a hep lock. So they needed to administer something through an IV. There was already that space available in my wrist. But then we were going to do intermittent monitoring. So they just kind of hooked me up for a minute to check the belly, took it off. And I really wanted to be in water. And I can't stress that enough. So at Scripps La Jolla, they only have showers. They don't do tubs. The shower was perfect because I was in and out so much. And they had flameless candles. They had music going. It was dark in there, so it was perfect. The water was definitely my savior through a lot of our labor. So I was kind of up and down, in and out. Things just kept going, kept progressing. I also remember I had packed my 40 blinks. And I should say, I did not have my hospital bag packed when labor started because I didn't think I was going to have labor yet. So they were in there, but I never put them on, but I had my eyes closed the whole time. So if you feel like you're going to have a lot of people come in and out of your room, then maybe put your 40 blinks on. But I was so lucky I had my doula, my husband, and the midwife, and that was it. And I should say too, when we got there, they basically said, do you want the OB or do you want the midwife on call? Which one do you want? And it was actually our doula, Willow, who was like, we want the midwife. We didn't know who she was. We didn't know anything about her, but we want her. And she was the best surprise of our whole delivery. So Jen, the midwife, can't pronounce her last name, so it's all the info we know, but she was amazing. So she said, take your time, take it low and slow. She knew that we did not want medication. She never questioned anything that we wanted to do, and she was a total support for us. And then we got really lucky that our nurse, Lauren, actually was also a spinning babies instructor, as was our doula. So they were able to share a lot of ideas and try different things. We had a few, issues along the way, if you even want to call it that, where she would get a little bit stuck on the right side. We had a cervical lip, so we were trying different positions or doing rebozo, shimmying things down, and we were able to get past all of these things. A couple of other things, there were times where I'd feel really cold and shake, and then there were times I'd feel really hot and sweaty, and in your mind you're kind of like, is there something wrong? Because that's not normal. And our doula very quickly was like, this is hormones, there's nothing wrong with you, it's fine. You're at the hospital, we can put hot blankets on you, we can put cold blankets on you, we can do this charade all day long, like just tell us what you need. And I think that if you didn't have someone there to tell you that, you get in your head and be scared about that, and it might be someone else's opportunity to be like, oh, let me give you medication for this, and you don't need medicine for it. So just a side note thing. But we labored in a lot of different positions. Like I said, the water was huge, and maybe around 3 o'clock, they were like, okay, you're making different noises now, so we think maybe we're getting close. And I should say too, your breathing is so huge, and you'll learn this in hypnobirthing class. Breathing is everything. And I think this can also shave hours off of your labor. So if you are doing kind of high-pitched noises, you're pushing everything up. In a sense, that can stall labor. If you use lower voice with your breath and you're pushing things down, it can help move things down. So use that to your advantage. Be kind of that like raging Amazon woman if that's what you feel like doing. I think I was making all kinds of noises under the sun, and I don't care. So at like 3 o'clock, they checked and they were like, yep, we think it's time. Let's start pushing. Where do you want to be comfortable? So I mean, I was squatting and I was on the bed using the squat bar. I was all over that room using a lot of the different techniques we learned in hypnobirthing for positions. That was so incremental. And I ended up giving birth in the bed, but I had gotten tired. So I was leaning back, but the bed was at an incline, and I was using my legs to push against the squat bar. And I had the rebozo that I was pulling. So it was kind of this push and pull. And listen to the midwife when you're finally at that point where the baby's crowning, because she's going to tell you, slow down or push, do this or do that. And all of that will dictate that last journey through your vagina. And from listening to her, I didn't tear. We had no issues. And I know that you kind of are in that moment and in that pain. You just kind of want to push through it and get past it. But if you just slow down and listen to them, it will not hurt. You'll get through it and it'll be done, and you won't have any kind of repercussions, if you even want to call it that, to deal with afterwards. So at 4:56 p.m., our little girl came flying out. A photo that I was going to sit in, I forgot, but she's like got her arm shooting out. And the midwife just kind of helps twist the body in that right direction. She comes right out. We wanted to do delayed cord clamping. So this would be like kind of my only error part of the birth. But I remember the midwife, Jen, being like, okay, she's out, grab your baby. And I just, you're in all these different emotions in the moment. And I just reached out and grabbed her. And in doing so, I actually tore the umbilical cord. So who would have thought? You can't actually just reach down and grab her and bring her up to your face. So they immediately grabbed it. I didn't even know it happened. That's how quick Jen was. And I had no idea. And so we were able to kind of close off the end of it, let it pulsate through where the break had happened. And then once that had stopped pulsating, then we cut and clamped it at her tummy. So that was kind of our only faux pas. But 8 pounds, 3 ounces, beautiful, perfect baby. We left all that good, juicy vernix on her, rubbed it all in. We went right to the breast. We were in that room for another like 2 hours, just breastfeeding, and nobody was like pushing us out of the room. It was perfect. It was a really, really lovely experience. And it kind of timed out perfectly with shift change too. So we got there at like whatever time in the morning, and now it was time for that shift change to end. So we had Lauren the whole time, and then Lauren was leaving, and she brought in the new nurse and introduced her to us. And then she ended up taking us to postpartum. So yeah, it was a really lovely experience. So I think his biggest thing, and it was actually something you had said when we did the info class, so not even the regular class, but it was, this is not a medical emergency, so you're in charge. And he was just like, so it let him feel comfortable and confident when we were in there. And then after obviously learning everything in class, he kind of knew what to do to support me, but to not feel like he was just on the sidelines. He felt so much involved in everything that was going on. And let's see, I did write down his stuff. He said that class gave him the confidence he needed and a better understanding of what was going on and what he could do to be a part of it. That it's not a medical emergency, you're in charge. And then he said a big thing for him was he learned, just to trust your gut, and that after the baby's born, there's a lot of activity, or there could be a lot of activity in the room, and none of it is a priority. All of it can wait, and that you can vocalize that. So, I think that says it taught him how to be his own advocate, but then an advocate for the baby, and right away. So they wanted to do a blood test on her because the umbilical cord had broke, and he's like, nope, it can wait. We had declined doing, I can't even remember now, you can blame it on mom brain, but the only thing we were willing to do was vitamin K, and we wanted it to be oral. So we had actually purchased it and brought it along, but we thought if they have a preservative-free version, we'd rather do that. So he was on that from the get-go. Lauren, our nurse, actually went out, found the vial, brought it in, and she reviewed it with him to be like, okay, what do you think? And so then after the baby was born and then they wanted to come in and do that, he's like, nope, that can wait. Just like, all of this can wait. We're doing skin to skin time. We're bonding with our new baby. She doesn't need to be poked in the foot right the second she comes out. So just remembering that, again, you're in charge. This is not a medical emergency in a sense. Like, they work for you. You're hiring them. And if there is something emergency, okay, great, fine. Deal with it. And dad goes with baby. But otherwise, all of that can wait. So I think that was his big takeaway. I think definitely learning, gosh, so much. Learning the different positions that I could be in was almost like a mental thing, because it taught me, okay, if I'm trying this and it doesn't work, these are all my other things that I can do. I'm a planner by nature, like that's just kind of my mindset. So it made me just feel more prepared, which then leads back to the confidence part of it all. So I went in feeling empowered. I felt like, this is great, I can't wait to do this. I was never at a point where I felt like, oh my gosh, I don't know what's happening, I'm starting to panic, maybe I need the medicine, basically second guessing myself. I never had that moment, and none of them ever even offered it to me anyway. So which was fine, and I didn't need it, and I'm so glad I didn't do it. But so I would say class taught me laboring positions, it taught me breathing techniques, it taught me how to feel confident, it taught me how to feel empowered, it taught me what was going on and what I could expect next. And I really kind of had the mindset of, with each surge was 1 minute closer to meeting my daughter. So I just felt really excited about all of it, and I don't think I would have had that without the class. So I think too, it just made me feel like I had a support team, because everybody in our class was amazing and we all stayed in touch, right? Like to this day, we all are on an email chain with each other, and Care helped orchestrate that. So it doesn't just feel like, okay, you're just coming, once a week and this is like a thing to do off your checklist. It felt like you were building a support team. And for my husband and I, we don't have any family here. So that was really huge for us. So yes. So I think it's a way to kind of, and I think too, for being somebody who's a planner and can get in my head, hypnobirthing taught me how to not get in my head. So by having breathing techniques, visualization techniques, places that my mind could go if it started to wander, there's hypnobirthing tracks that you can listen to. It's a lot of ways of quieting your mind to kind of get through what you're going through. But not even that, it's just it's a way of teaching yourself to be able to look at something from a really beautiful way instead of like a place of fear. General advice would be ask questions all the time, everywhere you go. But I'm also the type where I'd rather too much information and I can select what I like out of it than to have not asked a question. So, like at the hospital tour, they literally thought that we already had kids because of the questions that I was asking. But, how long are you in this room? And do you have to do this? And do you have to do that? How long do I have to be here till I can leave? Do you have a refrigerator? Like, what kind of food do I get to eat? Ask whatever questions that you have and in any capacity. Interview doulas, interview a couple of doulas. Set boundaries, and this was something we learned in hypnobirthing class. Set boundaries. It's huge because afterwards you get home. So maybe it's boundaries in the hospital room, but for me it was once I got home, if people are coming to visit, if you're tired, if you're this, if you're that, you're gonna feel pulled in a lot of directions. And if you've set your boundaries, then you can kind of help prevent any extra tears that don't need to happen. And have a support team. And support looks different for everybody. And so for us, it was a lot of people we met in our hypnobirthing class. I did prenatal yoga the whole time I was pregnant. So the group of girls from my yoga class, we have done FaceTime play dates this whole time because of quarantine. And we have a group text, and so we're going through the 4-month sleep regression right now, which I've told Care's ear all about, but I'm on that text with the girls. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? So having support in whatever way that looks like for you. So those were like my 3 general advice things. And then otherwise, my advice, I have like literally in all caps with exclamation points, doula, breastfeeding class. When the lactation consultants come into your room, like use them, ask them questions. Don't just be like, yeah, I got this, no big deal. For us, she had latched so easily, and I think they were like, oh, this is fine, she's got it, no big deal. And then like we didn't see them again. And I thought, oh, I've got this, no big deal. And then you come home and everything's different. So use them and ask them questions. And then I would say even have somebody lined up in case you do run into issues at home. So I think Care put us in touch with Anita, who's an amazing lactation consultant. She came to our house. I mean, there are moments where you're going to be like, I'm just going to give up. And in whatever regard, maybe it's cloth diapering, maybe it's breastfeeding, whatever it might be. And if that's where you feel like being, then fine. You do what works for you. But if you want to push forward and you want to give it one more go, have people on deck that you can call for that if you need to. So Anita came to our house and I would say like resuscitated our breastfeeding journey. And we've been exclusively breastfeeding for 4 months now. And I don't think I could have said that if we wouldn't have met Anita.